You're on mute.
I'm on an iPad, so I have to remember all the little buttons to push.
There you
How are
are.
you?
I am fantastic. How are you? I don't know if I've met you
Good.
actually.
No, I'm
My-
new.
I'm Erin
Well,
DeBro.
you're who?
My name is Erin DeBro, and I'm Crystal's executive assistant and growth manager for Angel Aid, and I'm taking over for Paige today.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. Crystal came to our 5P minus meeting, and it was on virtual this year, and she led the mothers breakout session, and
Oh, wow.
we all just fell in love with her. So, yeah, so anyway,
It's
a
hard
bunch
not
of
to.
joined, but anyway, I'm excited about it, and I've got
Yeah,
a couple of friends that came on because of it. So that's cool.
that's
Uh,
neat.
my hair's a mess because I've been out with the car windows down. It felt so good.
It's okay. I've got curly hair, so it does what it
I
wants to
do
do.
too.
And I'm down in Louisiana, and so it's, when the weather changes, so
Oh,
does the texture.
well, I'm in Alabama, so I get
Oh,
it.
yeah, I've only been
Yeah,
here since July.
I know. I know. It's really it's it's nice, but it gets hot in the summertime and the
Oh, sure
humidity is
does.
awful.
Yeah.
So
Did your
anyway,
weather
just
change really quickly, kind of on a dime the other day? We got real cold real
yeah,
quick.
like it got really down low this morning, and when I left the house, I was in my snuggy fleece jacket. When I
Ooh.
came home, I was out of it and the windows down. So yeah, it changed back really nice too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like it when it's this kind of temperature. It feels so good.
I'll take this and I'll do the summers for this.
I know, it's perfect.
We've
So,
spent the last 8 years up in the Northwest, Montana and Washington. So
oh,
Montana was a beast.
yeah, I
Whole different
bet.
country, whole different world.
Yeah, exactly. Did you move because of Angel Aid or your husband?
No, my husband's in the Air Force actually. So
Okay.
I came about Angel Aid in a pretty fortunate, accidental, awesome manner, actually. Uh,
Awesome.
I was an elementary school teacher for several years, for a lot of years. And then
Uh,
COVID, I have a kiddo who's got rare disease at home. And
oh,
so because of COVID and all of his multiple health issues, including heart problems,
oh,
we kind of really all had to be, at the same level of isolation that he was.
sure.
And so I couldn't do that. And I had to kind of rethink it. And so I met Crystal and I said, oh my goodness,
Wow.
hello.
Hey.
That's awesome. So now you get to work from home basically.
I do. I do.
That is perfect.
Yeah, I have two four-legged coworkers and two teenagers that often like to help with distractions.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
How old is your child?
I
Is it
have three kids. I have one that's 21, and then I have one that is 15 and one that's 16. And my son, with all of the medical issues, he's 16.
16?
Mhm.
My daughter is Amy, and she's 30.
Okay.
Just turned 30, and she's a hoot, but she has Creutzfeldt syndrome, which is a missing part of the fifth chromosome.
Okay.
Um, so anyway, that's the connection for us, and
Yeah.
we've been fortunate. She has not had a lot of issues as far as health goes, but she's a blessing, but at the
Yeah.
same time, she's a busy one.
Yeah. We knew about all the medical issues before the chromosomal stuff, which I'm hearing is more common than not. In fact,
Oh,
he's missing a chunk on his first chromosome, and it's so rare that they don't even have a name for it. It's just
uh,
1q21.1 microdeletion with like a huge chunk, and
oh
they
wow.
don't even have a name. There's hardly any literature, and we only found out because he was having a surgery, and he has a cleft palate, and so the
Yeah.
outcome of the surgery would have been a success or not a success if he had a certain disorder or chromosomal issue. So they went hunting for one in particular and found a whole different one.
How about that?
I know. He thought
Very
it was pretty
interesting.
cool because it has a Q in it, and his name is
Yeah.
Quincy. So
His
he
name
thought
is
that was
what?
pretty funny. His name is Quincy.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
cool that he's got
Yeah.
the key connection. Cool. So is he mobile or?
Yeah, he's got about 5 or 6 different congenital heart defects that have
Okay.
required surgery, a cleft lip and palate. He has a specialist for every body system essentially.
Yeah.
And we're now looking in narcolepsy avenues and all kinds of other things. It's just kind of like, it's always
Yeah.
something.
Right.
And with his deletion, it's hard to say whether it's related to all the heart surgeries or the chromosomal thing. And we've kind of just gone over the years and accepted it is what it is. It doesn't
It
matter
is.
what it belongs to. It doesn't matter what the symptoms tied to. Let's just treat
Right.
what it is. You know, and we
Exactly.
saved his life. Let's let him live it.
That's right. That's
And
right. I
joyfully.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I was glad to get a diagnosis and have a 5p minus deletion and know that that's what it was. And it is rare. It's 1 in 35 to 50,000.
Whoa.
But it is the most common of deletions because Down syndrome is an additional chromosome.
Right.
So if you went down the list of the next most common chromosomal abnormality, it would be 5p minus. So and it's also known as Credy-Shaw or Cat's-Cry syndrome. And the same Dr. Lejeune that coined or characterized Down syndrome also characterized Credy-Shaw.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Padma.
Hi, Padma. Welcome. I'm taking
Morning.
Aja's spot today.
Yes, you're Erin.
I am.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to hear y'all talk about this.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, I didn't even know we were part of a rare disease network. I didn't even know there was really such a thing, a rare mothers. What is that?
I know, right?
I'm just frazzled and crazy half the time.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah, I was telling Crystal how cool it would be too to bridge this over into, because we're a military family. And so you don't hear a lot of that, there's not a lot of that to change providers for every specialty every time you move.
Right. Oh, what a struggle
that would be tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. So it would be nice to, be able to, bridge that for support, bringing other moms more support.
Hi, Susie.
Hi, Susie.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Good to see you. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Trying to get a bunch of stuff done, but 10 o'clock snuck up on me, but glad to be here.
Yep, you made it.
Yes.
Well, it did on me too. It's noon here. I was at my dad's chatting away and I thought, oh dear, I better go. Run back home. I made it.
Laura. Good morning, afternoon for you, actually.
Good morning or afternoon.
Hi, Laura.
It feels like the evening. My daughter woke up at 4 a.m.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That makes sense. You've been up for 9 hours. Wow. Yeah.
How old is your daughter, Laura?
She's 3.5.
Okay. I thought she was young.
Yeah.
So she just woke up and wanted to play and was like, okay, good morning.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I think the time change did something, and then she was just like so overtired last night. I put her to bed a little bit early. So just a combination of factors. So I don't know. We'll see. She's at school right now, so it's going to be an interesting evening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she'll be wiped out, won't she?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the time change, even the fall back. Usually it's like the extra hour, but I was like, that day just felt so long. And then I fell asleep too early the next day. I'm like, let's not do this anymore.
I don't like either one of them. I like it to just stay where it's supposed to be. Aaron should join us, not go on silent.
I'm feeling like kind of low energy myself, and I
Sorry
do
about that.
wonder. Oh no, I do wonder if it's just kind of the time of year where there's just like I need to just be more accepting of just kind of a different energy state, not
Yeah.
resisted as much.
Exactly. It sounds like a good idea. You know, I feel like just accepting ourselves, and this we could a little bit bridge into our topic today. You know, accepting ourselves is a little bit also like forgiveness. It's like, I forgive myself for not having energy. And even like if you're doing something, you're competing with yourself. I know, Laura, you run, I ride the bike or whatever. It's like, you know, I forgive myself if I'm not at the top of my game, and I'm just giving myself the space. And so forgiveness and acceptance are really kind of tied together. So it just feels like it's very generous. Forgiveness is an act of generosity, I would say. So I'm so glad you're here, and maybe we'll have a few more of our lovely rare moms joining us here. I don't know. It's that time of year though, when things start to get busy, and then it's like holidays and all that stuff. So, but we're here now, and that's the point. And I'm glad to have Erin here today. This is her first time here. She's a member. What are you doing for Angel Aid, actually, Erin?
So today I'm filling in for Paige.
Yes.
Her soccer team she's coaching made it to the playoffs.
Go Paige.
And I said, I'll take it for today. That's fine. Because I'm a rare mom and I work with Angel Aid. So I kind of get to live in both worlds. It's really neat. So I started with Crystal the end of September, and I am her executive assistant and growth manager. So I kind of am her shadow, make sure she doesn't forget things, remind her of all the things she's got to do, keep all the balls in the air. And I get to learn about this world that I'm also a member of, that I had no idea that was even a thing. And then, you know, it's kind of neat. It's kind of cool. And I'm super motivated and excited by it. One of the things that I have noticed is that, you know, this would have been so helpful all these years, right? Our son's 16 and we just kind of, it became our normal. And we always said, you know, it was a blessing you wish everybody could experience, but it was a journey you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. You know, it's kind of this double-edged thing, but it's taught us a lot. And so getting to find Crystal and be able to use my professional skill set to grow this support network for people that I feel like so need it is super cool.
It is. Yeah. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. How do we reach you? Can we reach you? Are you on
I am. I'll put my email in the chat. Yes, I will. And then you can get me anywhere that way. So
okay. So if we have something that's specifically where we want to reach Crystal.
Exactly. If you need to get to her.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you put it in there, we can have that.
Yeah. I will.
So yeah, I'm going to read to you. So I'll read this and then we'll meditate, and then we'll just have a conversation about forgiveness and how it works for you, how it works in your life, and how it also supports harmony in your relationship, because there's a lot of forgiveness that, you know, wants to happen in relationships, forgiving one another for lots of things. I'm going to read to you from this book, though, David White's Consolations. I've read from it before. This is really just an extraordinary book. It's some prose. You know, usually he's a poet. Consolations, the solace, nourishment, and underlying meaning of everyday words. So I'm going to read just part of it, and then we'll go into, it's so hard not to read the whole thing, but it's a little bit long. So you can just listen with eyes closed or open. It's up to you. And then we'll meditate. Forgiveness is a skill, a way of preserving clarity, sanity, and generosity in an individual life. A beautiful way of shaping the mind to a future we want for ourselves. an admittance that if forgiveness comes through understanding, and if understanding is just a matter of time and application, then we might as well begin forgiving right at the beginning of any drama, rather than put ourselves through the full cycle of festering, incapacitation, reluctant healing, and eventual blessing. To forgive is to put oneself in a larger gravitational field of experience than the one that first seemed to hurt us. We reimagine ourselves in the light of our maturity, and we reimagine the past in the light of our new identity. We allow ourselves to be gifted by a story larger than the story that first hurt us and left us bereft. At the end of life, the wish to be forgiven is ultimately the chief desire of almost every human being. In refusing to wait, in extending forgiveness to others now, we begin the long journey of becoming the person who will be large enough, able enough, and generous enough to receive, at the very end, that absolution ourselves. Thank you to David White for his wise words. So just taking a nice breath, and we are going to just meditate for a little while. Let your eyes drift closed. Make sure that your body is comfortable, and rearrange yourself so that you're able to rest. Taking a breath and recognizing that you're here. You have carved out this precious time in your day. And it is precious. Precious time for yourself. So just breathing in the nourishment of slowing down. Every breath takes you deeper into that quiet space inside. And you may have your own way finding this silent space, space you enter into in nature, meditation, yoga, prayer. Just finding your way into that generous silence. It is in this space that forgiveness can occur, the deep space of your heart. Sensing in to the notion that forgiveness is an act of generosity, first for yourself, and second for another. being curious about what, if anything, you might want to forgive yourself for in this moment. Might be something very small, maybe a sharp tone that you used, a way you were critical with yourself. Some action that could have, might have been done differently. Forgiving yourself, making room in your heart. Recognizing that you are doing your best. You are showing up from moment to moment, offering your best. And your best looks different at different times. You might want to place one or both hands on your heart if it feels good. And from this space, being curious about what, if anything, there might be to forgive your husband, forgive your partner. What wants forgiveness? Something they said, didn't say. A moment of discord. Some moment where perhaps you were challenged in your relationship. Beginning with something small. Is there room in your generous heart to forgive them? Might be yes, might be no. Maybe that you just are able to forgive a little bit. Take your time. Forgiveness makes room in your heart for love. And you can see what else might arise to forgive either yourself or your husband. What wants forgiveness in your life? What is ready to be forgiven? Taking a couple of nice breaths. And then as you're ready, we'll come back. And just take a few minutes to reflect on forgiveness. Reflect on forgiveness. How does forgiveness work in your life? What supports forgiveness? Welcome, Katie. Nice to see you. We're just going into our journaling moments here. Reflecting on forgiveness. How does forgiveness serve you in your life, in your relationship? And what, if anything, is in the way of forgiving yourself and your husband? Taking a little bit more time to finish up. So, I'm curious what comes up in this inquiry for you. How does forgiveness work in your life? Are you easily forgiving? Are you not? There's no judgment. It's like, just to make note of it and say, oh yeah, it's actually easier for me to forgive myself than my partner, or vice versa. Because we're human. We wouldn't be here if we didn't have work to do. We'd be off flying in the universe. Who wants to begin? You can speak about anything that came up.
The thing that stuck out to me was actually just the thought, I think it was from the passage that you read, but the idea of forgiving beforehand versus going through the whole rigmarole of being mad or angry or upset and all of that. And I was like, oh, what if, like, what does that look like to show up forgiving? Like, what, is that just being compassionate, or just trying to figure out, like, what does that posture look like, especially, going into the holidays or things like that, where you're like, how can I just show up ready and understanding that things aren't going to go perfectly and I'm not going to be happy all the time, or people aren't going to say what I want to hear or whatever. And just trying to think what that might look like in a day-to-day world. And just thinking of even the word forgive feels like the for part feels like it's the before, right? Before versus forgive versus afterwards. So it just kind of was a funny connection where I'm like, how have I never thought of that being a forethought versus an afterthought? So
that's great. So how might that show up then for you over the holidays because over the holidays with family, extended family, that's a great place to bring forgiveness for sure. What might that look like? You have any sense?
I think right now for me, it's a sense of trying to stay open instead of closing. I feel like there's always lots of requests and opportunities to close or defend or fall into bad, or to previous patterns, but just trying to be cognizant of just how do I stay open to whatever is going to come next, so yeah, that feeling of generosity, or just how do I keep that openness versus when I'm inclined to close.
Yeah, that's great. So important, because forgiveness creates space. And closing down is this pattern that I know several of you have mentioned, and I have it too. I think we all do it at different times. This closing down, I'm going into withhold, right? I'm not going to forgive you. Now I've got this withhold thing. I'm just going to back up. And then it's hard to relate. And the withhold is actually, not only is it ungenerous to your husband, you're being ungenerous with yourself. So it's a practice of staying open. Forgiveness is very opening, even though you have to kind of walk through maybe some tricky terrain, sticky, feels like it can be a little mucky, like the swamps down in Alabama. I'm imagining, haven't been there, but. Cher, you want to unmute yourself, Cher, please?
Erin's from Louisiana. She would have the swamps.
Okay, great. No swamps in Alabama.
I haven't seen the swamps yet.
Oh, you haven't?
I'm
Okay.
staying away from those. They have gators in them.
That's right. They do. Yeah. We don't
What
really have
what
swamps.
about forgiveness then, Sherry, for you?
Oh, you want to talk to me? Okay.
Well, you're unmuted.
Well, I am. Okay. I really like what you said about forgiveness opens the heart for love. And that really uh, rang true with me. I feel like that. And I really do forgive my husband and others a lot better than I forgive myself. And I'm really cruel to myself as far as the things I hold against me. Um, and my daughter and my husband have been working on me for a long time, trying to get me to think positively about myself and all the things I'm capable of versus being hard on myself and being down on myself for the things that are true about me. And for one, I'm overweight, and we've talked about doing the Noom thing before, so y'all know that. But the that I'm really hard on myself about, and I always feel bad about it. And I also feel negatively about not being beautiful, not being a pretty person. But I do have really good qualities. Like I'm really loving, and I reach out to people that need help easily, especially in the special needs community. I'm the number one person people go to, and that's how I met Julie. Just I can relate to what others are going through since I've been in it for 30 years. And like Erin said, we've already walked the walk, and it's just life for us. And it's okay. And I don't know if y'all have read the poem called Welcome to Holland, but it will really kind of guide, or it did me, even though they don't use family first language or people first language. And it's a very nice poem that helps especially new families realize that the journey is different, but it's nice too. It's got a lot of benefits, and you feel a lot of love that you don't feel in just a normal, typical, everyday life. That you have this child that loves you unconditionally. So all of that really makes me feel like um, I am a good person. It's just I have negative qualities, like we probably all do, but I'm not really hard on myself about it. So
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that it's really important. Again, I'm struck, and this is one of the things that I feel like we as women and caregivers, it's like to receive your own goodness. I mean, I was really, really touched. You said, well, I'm the number one person in the, rare mother community that people go to around.
well, yeah, I didn't mean it like that, but
no, I'm so, because it's amazing. You're accessible, you're available, you're generous. So what I want to say is to you, Sherry, and to all of you and all of us, is receive your goodness. Like receive where you're showing up, and the good heart that you have, and the loving person that you are, because that also, it's like you fill up your tank so that then those parts and physical form, as far as I know, with physical form, like beauty comes and goes, weight comes and goes, all this stuff, it really comes and goes, and we know it's temporary, but completely temporary. So just allowing the goodness that you can feel inside of you to be the place where you can invite those parts in, those places where we're judging ourselves, where we're critical of ourselves, where we're judgmental, critical, or reactive toward our husbands. Just invite that. It's like, that's the resource. That's the bowl of goodness where you can put those things into. And that's where the alchemy of forgiveness can occur. If that makes sense. Because it does
Thank
feel
you.
like forgiveness is alchemical. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so glad you're here, Sherry,
Thank you.
with your radiant heart. So how else does forgiveness serve in your life? And or what are the challenges to forgiving for you?
I think that I'm not good at forgiving in real time or preemptively. Certainly haven't like practiced that yet, but it is a great concept. I think I have probably a very good setup for that, um, in that my husband and I seem to get into like a repeated, we have like a recurring dynamic that I need to find forgiveness for routinely, where his kind of or his work life rolls over, and that stress becomes something that is kind of directed at me inappropriately, and then not physically, thank goodness, but then it's like, then eventually after a couple days or a week, like he ends up apologizing for kind of bad words or treat, whatever. And I find that I can forgive those occurrences, with time, kind of around the same time he finds the words to apologize for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, I still am having trouble like forgiving the cycle, like the recurrence of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, like the fact that it's kind of this like repeated offense and that I can see it so clearly, and yet it's still happening, is like another feels like a very separate thing to forgive. And that I need to work on, because I think if I could forgive that, then I could reach the like preemptive forgiveness where like as it's happening, I could just be like, oh, and be less reactive to it. Because I think forgiveness is like it, as you've said, it's both ways. It's like I don't know, it depowers both sides of it. So that's what came up for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. So forgiving, right? Because forgiving as quickly as we can is useful, right? Because forgiveness allows a repair to occur, right? In a rupture. And what you're describing, Laura, sounds like a repeated rupture.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a way two things. One is forgiving more quickly is the best if we can do it. We're all working toward that, and I mean, honestly, I don't know about forgiving what sounds like dysfunctional dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
I would look toward, how do I, like what you said, like you being less reactive, how do I shift that dynamic? What is the architecture of that pattern? And how do I say, actually, I'm not going down that road again. I'm not going to do it. And it sounds like the kind of thing where, your husband is saying something unkind, or kind of the stress, as you said, translates. So it's being then directed at you. As soon as you're aware of that, you could just say, honey, no, thank you. Like, I'm not available for this. I mean, those words, like, I'm not available for this, and setting it up ahead of time. Because honestly, that's really being a true friend to each other. If I'm doing something and I'm getting into my stuff, I am grateful when my partner says to me, I'm not available for this. You're gonna talk to me that way. I'm not available for that. Like, why would I want it? Because it gives me, or in this case, it gives your husband, it's almost like permission to do the behavior that's not really working at all.
Mm.
So if there's any way to kind of tease it apart and slow it down, and then set him up and say, honey, this seems to happen on a regular basis. I totally get that you're stressed. You're working hard. Thank you so much for supporting our family. My partner is working super hard right now. He's in the startup. And so there's he doesn't direct his attention at me, but there's just this feeling of this person that's working really hard in space. And it's not that nice to be around. So I just give him a lot of bandwidth and try and be as understanding as possible. But like, if someone comes to me with something, if they're saying, oh, here's, a 3-day-old moldy bowl of food, like, I'm going to say, no, thank you. I'm not interested in that 3-day-old, rotting food. Cause that's really like, it's a gift. Like, he's offering you something and you're not obliged to take it. Right. We could just say, oh, no, thank you. And find kind, gentle ways, and setting it up ahead of time that you're going to just bow out peacefully as soon as, which of course means you need to be able to interrupt your own reaction and catch your own part in the dynamic.
Mhm.
It's a high bar activity, but I think you're ready for that, Laura, honestly. I think you're
Yeah,
capable.
no, that's great advice. I think to generalize it more to perhaps like the holidays again and more families and greater interactions. I think that in general, rare moms are practicing forgiveness of others, lack of processing their own grief and their own fear and ableism. I find that that's part of what's coming up for us in our relationship. But I think that that's going to be something that probably comes up going into the holidays, seeing more family that doesn't routinely interact with our son, who, last holiday really still looked kind of neurotypical for his age, and this year doesn't. So we'll see how that comes out. But thank you for holding my comment, Padma. And we do have a professional who's getting involved with our marriage. You'll be happy to know.
Good.
Because there is a dysfunctional dynamic.
Yeah, I'm glad. That's good. It's good to have help, and I just want to say, like, that's really getting help is key. And even those of us who give help need help. And I know there's a lot of us here who are helpers and, helping medically and otherwise. Yeah.
It made me think too, Laura, about when you're talking about trying to forgive the dynamic, or almost like, also reminds me of almost forgiving yourself for being human, or for being someone who can't always, catch their reactions. I heard an analogy, I don't remember who it was, but talking about how we're a rider on an elephant, like kind of our brain, our cognitive thinking mind is, we think that we're in control, but we're really just the rider on top of an elephant. And we have this body and we have all of these unconscious things that we can either make friends with and understand that like our body does things whether we like it or not. And we do have influence. We are the rider. We're on top of it. We're smart, but we do have this like component that is bigger and stronger than us. And I don't know, I just was thinking of that analogy where it's just like almost forgiving yourself for being not in complete control either, or for being human. And just that dynamic of those having weaknesses. I don't know if that resonates at all, but I liked that analogy, and I've been trying to bring that into my own life of just accepting like the circumstance and the fact that I have influence, I do not have control. And how do I accept that? So
I think it's the book, The Happiness Hypothesis. At least that's where I've
maybe
I've read it.
I'm sure.
Have you read that one?
In multiple places. I haven't. Yeah, I'll have to write that one down.
Oh, that's a good
one. Well, thank you. Thanks, Susie. How about you, Katie? Where's all of this landing in you, and how does it play out in your life and relationship?
Well, I'm sorry I was so late. I had a dentist appointment that ran late, and I have 2 kids homesick from school that I had to find a way to juggle with my husband to get this time. So
For
I'm
making
happy to
it.
be here. I
Oh,
feel
really?
like having
Yeah.
missed the meditation, and I felt like most of the journaling, I needed to just like get myself here. Um, so it's been helpful to hear others' reflections. I really struggle with forgiveness. I think I like to think that I can forgive. I think about it a lot, and I feel like maybe superficially, um, I feel like I can say the words, and in certain interactions, I have an easier time with kind of day-to-day interactions with colleagues or family members or friends, but like really, I guess maybe more distant family members, but with like my parents or with my partner, I think that I struggle with it a lot more. And I realize that I have a tendency in moments of stress to kind of snowball, like to, if I'm feeling hurt, then all of a sudden a lot of hurt comes up from the past, like from other instances that I think I've forgiven or that I've let go of. And so I clearly am not, I don't have kind of that lasting forgiveness. And I think it's a personal tendency that I really struggle with. And I think it has to do with sometimes a lack of acceptance or forgiveness for my own faults or flaws, or, my part in certain hurts in relationships or ruptures in relationships. And I, I, I don't think I've found a good way out of that pattern. I've been better at calling it out, or my partner will call it out. When we've sort of gotten way off track of a particular conversation or argument, so to speak, and we're just sort of rehashing old hurts. So I actually think I'm really bad at this when I get down to it. I think on a deeper level, I'm really bad at forgiving, and I'm sure it starts with sort of a lack of forgiveness or acceptance, or just not being particularly generous or kind to myself in certain ways. But I think I'm not as mature, even as most of the people have described on this call, with my forgiveness.
Well, sounds like it's a great place to cultivate, right? And I would also caution you from any sort of comparison, because we're all just showing up here where we are. And I feel like, actually, I really want to say it's courageous to show up here. These are not easy conversations that we're having. These are deep soul conversations. This is not a casual chat, on a Tuesday. This is deep soul bearing kind of dialogue that we're engaging in here, which is what I like personally. So hence I'm here. So yes, forgiveness starts with ourselves and practicing that. And Katie, so maybe that's a practice you want to take on, is just daily, just forgiving yourself for the little things. Just taking a moment, putting your hand on your heart and saying, oh yeah, I kind of messed that one up, but like, it's all right. Like, send yourself some love. It's a very, very, it's loving and generous, and it's kind of like a self-nurturing. And I do want to talk about the rehashing of the old parts. So if you find yourself, not just you, if we find ourselves doing that, put it down. It's done. It is done. What's done is done. Do not drag the old. It's like, it's again, I'm on a trash riff. It's like, okay, I'm going to go out and drag yesterday's trash out of the bin. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave yesterday's trash there and let the guys take it away. Like, why would I bring yesterday's stuff in? And so maybe even having an agreement, right? Because agreements are so helpful. We will abstain from dragging in yesterday's pain And then if we find that we're doing it, either of us can say, oh, that's from yesterday. And I'm talking yesterday, could be yesterday, last week, last month, last year, whatever. Historical stuff. Let's leave it in the past. Let's learn from it and let's leave it in the past. So restrict dragging in yesterday's trash. And I know many of you, just putting that down because I'm going to put it in the blog. And I just want to say that I think you know that all of these meetings, meditations, it's all recorded. So you can go and check it out. If you miss a meditation, you could say, oh, you know what, I'd really like to just like take, today's was 8 minutes. They're usually 7 or 8 minutes. Is that a good amount of time? Does that feel like a doable amount of time? Does anybody ever go and revisit the meditations? It's okay if you don't. I know people do. Well, if you do it here, you might not. There's so much possible meditation. So I just want to also mention, I don't know if you're familiar. I know some of you have read my book, the ancient Hawaiian forgiveness practice. You're nodding. Yeah. Ho'oponopono, right? So we want to draw from ancient wisdom, or at least I do. If it's been around for a long time, we're still hearing about it. There might be something in it of value, and there is. So, you know, Ho'oponopono is, it's basically just saying to yourself, when something happens, and there's exercise, this is page 122 in my book, if you want to go and practice this. You know, you visualize your partner, you can do this whether or not who's ever committed the wrong. And you direct these 4 sentences, and you can direct them to yourself or to your partner. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. And it's really, and you do this for like 15 minutes. You just do it like a chant, like a prayer, like a mantra. You just let the energy, the vibration of this practice, because it's not just words. It's actually an ancient practice. And you just it's transformative. It's and you're tapping into the energy of the practice that's been done and is still being done in the Hawaiian community. And I'll just give one little example of one time I went out in the evening in the East Bay in Oakland, which is a little bit of a rougher place here in the Bay Area. And it was night, and I just had my old car was a little Honda Fit, and I just had my purse in the back. And you know, it has that triangular window, the little window in the back, and my purse was kind of tucked in. Boom, smash and grab. You know, we came out of this beautiful uplifting dance event, and then my purse was gone. It was a really nice purse too, gray with like suede with fringe. It was nice. And inside I had all kinds of things, money, essential oils, my ID, all these things. Well, I was with a friend, and she said, you know what, let's go back and look. And meanwhile, as I was driving the 2 or 3 blocks, going around the block to circle back to where the car had been parked, I just started doing Ho'oponopono. I was forgiving this person who, you know, took my purse. I just was like, all right, I forgive you. I forgive you. You needed it more than I did. Everything in there I could replace. Was it going to be a little bit of a hassle or a lot? Sure. But it wasn't going to, you know, it was what it was. So I was just practicing it. I was just saying it out loud. I just dropped into it. We drove back just 5 minutes later, and my friend got out and looked around in the bushes. She found everything. It was all there, the whole purse, everything except the cash. Somebody needed the cash. I don't know what it was. It was $50, something, you know? And so I just feel like it's like you can start doing it immediately. Somehow through grace, I had heard about a friend of mine actually who'd had her stuff stolen. And I remembered what she had said to me about it. And I was like, I'm just going to do that. And I wasn't doing it with an agenda to get the stuff back. I just thought I could be really grumpy on top of this lovely evening we had, or I could shift it. And so I really want to encourage you to just play with that practice, just experiment with it. You could say thank you to the Hawaiian ancestors and, and just try it out and see. Has anybody else had an experience of working with or experimenting with Ho'oponopono? Give it a try. It is really something. And you can do it with yourself. Even just start doing it with yourself. For all those moments where you shoulda, coulda, woulda, you thought you could have been different, because we do that to ourselves. But forgiveness is such, it's so healing. And it's a growing edge, I would say. Is there anyone here for whom it's not a growing edge to forgive? Me too. I mean, it's a practice. It's really a practice. And yet it's just creates so much space, and you can return to this quiet space of love in your heart. Or you can even discover it. Maybe you're not returning to it. Maybe you're discovering it, becoming acquainted with this inner sanctum that lives in all of us. And this is where forgiveness happens. So what else? Anything else that you want to just name for us?
It actually makes me wonder if almost I'm thinking of forgiveness as being the space that we give, and just thinking about it as like, it's not something that we have to conjure up and like come up with ourselves. Like, what if forgiveness is out there and you just have to, like receive it or just acknowledge it or something, versus feeling like I need to get to this point, or I need to be the person that this doesn't bother, versus being like, no, I just need to like create the space and allow room for it to come or not come, whether it's 5 seconds later or 2 years later or 20 years later, but like trying, just having that space. And I don't know, I'm just trying to think of like, where does it come from? Like, so just processing that.
Yeah, that's great. Find the space. Just find the space. It's not something you have to do. See if you can encounter the space of forgiveness and then allow it to receive. And this is also why this is the part of underneath so creating that space. Maybe that's the practice, is filling yourself up with receiving your own goodness and then allowing yourself to open to the space of forgiveness. Receive your own goodness, where you say, and I have practiced this literally for years. I still do. And I start most of my individual sessions with this, whether I'm on the giving or receiving end. What am I doing well? What can I appreciate about myself? What are you doing well in your life? Because we can so easily turn toward the other. Oh, I need to do more of this. I didn't quite do that. My list is, so long. But receiving, what am I already doing well? Doing means like, how am I showing up for myself? The fact that you showed up here, you could just take a breath and receive. Oh, I carved out this time for myself to be together, because your presence matters. Everyone's voice, everyone today, and each time we meet, everyone brings in so much, brings so much value in what you share, because it's you're the expression of your heart. The expression of your challenges are useful for everyone. So receiving your goodness and then tapping into forgiveness. And you can experiment with Ho'oponopono.
Something I heard during your story of like being stolen from was like, maybe that person needed the cash, or they needed cash for some reason, and like there's circumstances that led that person to there. And then in the meditation you mentioned like we're all doing the best that we can, right? And so I think like forgiveness comes in, or a part of forgiveness for me at different points in my life is like understanding that like this the person is probably good. I mean, I believe that most people in humanity, 99.9% of people are good. And that it's, circumstances that lead to these situations that where people, unintentionally or intentionally produce harm.
Yeah, it's true. Everyone's doing their best, and we are all coming from where we're coming from. So forgiveness, the thing about forgiveness also is we can forgive. Forgiveness can go forward and backward. How we can do that. We can send the forgiveness all the way back in time through your whole lineage of all the things that happened and all the people that were involved. We can forgive them. We can forgive them, and that also then we forgive ourselves, and we forgive our children. Forgive our children for things they've done, for things they will do, for things they can't do. I'm going to leave you with the invitation to really just explore forgiveness and see what comes. You're welcome to journal about it, and I'll be curious to hear just how it shows up in your world this week. And even if you can just take like one tiny little step toward like, oh, how does this work? How can I do this? And as David White said, forgive at the beginning rather than going through all the strife and struggle internally, externally. Like, forgive faster. Perhaps just a little faster, All right, lovely ones. So good to be with you. And please stay in touch with me, stay in touch with each other through Mighty Networks. And I will see you next week. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Erin, for starting the meeting, and good to meet you.
Of course, good to meet you too.
Yeah. All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Super day.
Thank you.
Bye.